Steven Lerman has been practicing injury law for 44 years in the LA community, holding law licenses in Florida, California, and Hawaii. One of his most well-known cases was the representation of Rodney King. Let's meet Steven Lerman. Hello, Steve. Thanks for coming in.
Hello, Tim. A real pleasure.
Thank you. Please
pleasure.
sit down.
Thank you.
So, Steve, how did you get into injury law?
Well, originally in 1972, when I was first practicing, my interest was in criminal defense. Had I not been a public defender in Florida, before my graduation, I tried 3 jury cases. Such was the law then in Florida. Wow. But when I arrived in California to seriously set up a practice, I worked with several firms in general practice, which is to say divorce cases, workers' comp. I even did a bankruptcy back in the day. My interest in criminal defense paid the bills. I wrote appellate briefs and did a full job of practicing not only in Superior, but in federal courts. I was up against witnesses from the FBI, from the DEA, importation of drugs from places like Thailand, the Golden Triangle in Burma. But my interest shifted into personal injury. I found I could do a much better job. The matter of forensic science came to me very quickly. I have a degree in human anatomy. This is something that is essential for a personal injury lawyer to develop, so to explain cases to a jury composed of individuals that don't have medical knowledge. At least they're not supposed to. In addition, my interest in personal injury was heightened by the involvement in cases of great seriousness: wrongful death, brain injury, amputation of an arm, amputation of a leg, serious coma cases where we have clients that went to literally rehab for the brain and successfully got out of comas and lived normal lives at this time. However, my most well-known case was the representation of Rodney King. Rodney's mother, Odessa King, a devout Jehovah's Witness, hired me based upon my reputation. And so it was that I represented Rodney King in his civil suit against the Los Angeles Police Department, the city of Los Angeles, if you will, and the officers that beat Rodney King almost to a pulp.
Let me ask you a question. Does dealing in such a high-profile case, and some of the other high-profile cases that we haven't even spoken about, did that change your life really, professionally or personally?
It changed my life completely. What I thought was an unlisted number somehow was used by journalists, and I'm not talking just local journalists, but journalists across the continental United States, and people calling me long distance from Europe. So I decided to keep my sleep hours intact, and I had the phone company change it on an emergency basis. They took my name from unlisted to forget about it within 5 minutes after I'd been woken up at 3 in the morning. As far as personally, I felt a tremendous sense of responsibility to the African American community. I'm a Civil War student, having come from Florida, having attended University of Florida, North Central Florida in Gainesville. I was exposed to what some people call, the cracker culture. I was a bar mitzvah Jew in Miami Beach, and now I found myself here at University of Florida talking with a Southern accent.
Yeah, that's the real South. That's the difference. Gainesville is the real South.
Not unlike Matlock.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll throw that in and tell people, y'all have a nice day. But it comes from the heart and my environment at that time. But Rodney King's case changed my life. It changed my perspective on what an act against one man that was viewed with the video camera taking up that footage could change the entire community. Later on, when I became, shall we say, more successful because of the kinds of cases that came to me by virtue of TV appearances and throughout media, and media from different countries, I found that the case was well known in places such as South Africa. It was well known in Russia when I traveled to St. Petersburg. It was known all through Europe. It was known through Brazil when I went down for Carnival. Everyone seemed to know about Rodney King because, excuse the pun, it left a black eye on the United States. Here we are as a democracy, and we're talking about cases involving human rights, cases involving black people being lynched, Martin Luther King. All of that history was all sounding well. I Have a Dream, that all sounded well. Well, what didn't look very well was Rodney King on the ground being pummeled by a squad of police officers. And I might add, the last police officer to have a boot stomping Rodney King's head was an African-American police officer.
Is that right?
Oh, that's very right. And so when I went through those years of practice, I represented the OJ jurors. I got them their book deal. One time as a literary correspondent, and if you want to call me an agent, perhaps, but the book was published, and the title is Madam Foreman.
I was just about to ask you, did you glean any information you can share that would be interesting?
Well, I can't reveal the gleaning, if you will. However, my private investigator, which was a former LAPD officer, Vietnam veteran, Medal of Honor winner with the LAPD, was my chief investigator on the King case. His name is Tom Owens. Mr. Owens was hired by the Johnny Cochran firm to be the investigator on the OJ case. So I got that insight, given the fact that I was exposed to these various individuals. I have a very detailed understanding of what went right and what went wrong in the OJ case. And what went wrong was Mark Fuhrman. The district attorney of Los Angeles County had, and probably still has, an unfortunate habit of not vetting the police witnesses. And so Mark Fuhrman was caught up in a lie with his use of, shall we say, unfortunate racial epithets on tape 41 times using the so-called N-word. It only took 2 times that Judge Ito allowed for the jury to hear to realize that there was a significant flaw in the integrity of the evidence. The integrity of the evidence. In fact, Mark Fuhrman was convicted of perjury. He is, in fact, a convicted felon, offering his opinion on various talking shows from his lair in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I have no respect for this man. But other cases were far more tragic. Personally, I represented the mother of a little girl that was strangled to death after being molested in a casino on the state line. And that little girl, Sharice Iverson, was a horrifying episode of lawlessness by one person, Jeremy Strohmeyer, who is an intoxicated teen from the Long Beach area that molested this poor girl, strangled her to death, and was later sentenced to life in prison in Nevada, where I'm sure he has occasional company with O.J. Simpson, who's also in prison in Nevada. Those kind of cases are personal.
Would you say these high-profile and actually kind of callous way of saying it, these interesting cases are what in some ways separate your law practice versus your competitors?
Well, none of my competitors can claim that they handle these type of high-profile cases. Rodney King was known all over the world. I dare say that the most competitive lawyers in Los Angeles, some who claim the biggest verdicts in history of the United States jurisprudence, these people are not known at all. If they perhaps are known somewhere in the state, locally, of course. There's law firms that are known very well locally, right here in Burbank, for example, in Glendale, for example, and you know who you are. And I know who you are, but no one can claim that kind of notoriety. I've been on every TV network. I've been on every show. Phil Donahue, Sally Jesse Raphael. I've even been on the BBC doing a radio commentary, shows like 2020, Montel Williams, everything. I've done everything multiple times.
Well, what kind of clients are you looking for now? Exclusively high-profile clients? Or?
No.
Okay.
No. Oh, no.
Good. I wanted to get that point.
The clients I'm looking for now are clients that need me and the special service I can provide. I can provide for injured victims, whether it be a car accident, work-related injury. We have a client now whose arm was taken off at the shoulder by farm equipment way up north in the dairy country of California. That's a client of mine. and we're making a claim for the product liability, the defect of the machinery that unfortunately took this man's arm off at the shoulder. So I'll take those cases and do my very best, particularly head injury cases. Handling a brain injury case before a jury requires a special skill and the knowledge of forensic medicine, and most importantly, enough experience to pick and sort out the most valuable forensic experts. When you populate a serious injury case with sought-after experts who can sometimes testify for both the plaintiff and defendant, so-called both sides, you get those experts in a trial, and jurors are more likely to believe those experts more than just some lawyer flapping his gums, sounding all important, flaring nostrils like on Law and Order. Okay, that's all fiction. But the reality is picking the right experts and presenting the case. Most cases involving car accidents settle without a trial. But I've never feared a jury, both state and federal. And I can honestly say that I've won millions of dollars for clients in all kinds of situations. And my consultations are free. I have an office out by the airport, by LAX. I'm conveniently located near any freeway. And I welcome clients who have suffered injury, not only at the hands of the police, law enforcement agencies. I've developed cases against the LAPD, county sheriff, CHP, and for all manner of different types of illicit conduct by law enforcement. And I represent my victims, and the ones that have passed, I represent families that grieve still for those poor victims, such as the Isel Ford Jr. was shot by LAPD. That was a horrifying case, resounded with demonstrations, and it's still pending. The police commission, which is an arm of city government, ruled that that shooting was out of policy. But the LAPD won't let cases settle. They vowed to go into city council chambers or an executive meeting and contest any settlement. They want a jury to write a check. As a result of that philosophy, the city is writing a lot of checks. And all I can say is police officers are not a bad lot. I mean, my God, how many of our lives depend on calling a cop, calling 911? But there's always a few bad apples. And a lot of the incidents can be explained away by naivety, lack of professionalism, sourcing adrenaline, and just not thinking before a trigger is pulled. The use of deadly force before all of the lesser than deadly force options have been used, such as when you spray somebody with pepper spray, when you look to hit somebody with a police baton. There's other means less deadly. Beanbag shotguns come to mind, and instead we always find these people shot to death. So it seems a complete ignorance of the officer in those cases of all the various less lethal forms of restraint. And I think we have a diverse police force. Los Angeles, in many respects, is the best police force in the world. We have 10,000 officers. And there may be a few that don't share this knowledge of human compassion and shoot first and don't even bother asking questions later. And unfortunately, this type of attitude has been assisted by our present chief, Charlie Beck, who wants to take the side of the officers, but doesn't seem completely interested in remodeling the thought process that goes into vetting and qualifying officers to be LAPD officers. My praise and my heart goes out to the police officers that strive every day to do God's work and protect our communities.
Well, Steven Lerman, you have a high-profile practice, a very successful practice, but I know you're representing people who need your help, and your information, contact information is up on the screen, and I would definitely encourage anyone who could possibly use your services to reach out. Thank you very much, Steven.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay.